You open an old jar in the back of your pantry. The label's faded, the lid slightly sticky, and you're not even sure how long it's been there. Months? Years? Maybe it moved apartments with you. But when you pop the lid open, it's fine. Thick, golden, maybe a little cloudy. But the smell? Sweet. The taste? Just like always. No mold, no sourness, no fuzz. Just pure, undisturbed honey. And that's not just surprising. It's borderline miraculous, because this isn't just a long shelf life situation. This is near immortality. We're talking about a food that stays safe and edible not for weeks, not for years, but for millennia. Need proof? Archaeologists have discovered sealed jars of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs, buried alongside pharaohs more than 3,000 years ago, and still perfectly preserved. You could have poured it on toast. This isn't a one-off. It's a pattern. It happens again and again. Time passes. Civilizations rise and fall. But honey endures. So what gives? What's going on inside this gooey gold that lets it laugh in the face of decay? Well, to understand why honey never expires, we need to understand what usually makes food spoil in the first place. In a word, life. Spoilage happens because living things, bacteria, fungi, yeasts, find their way into food and start breaking it down. They eat, they reproduce, they excrete waste. That's rot. That's mold. That's the fuzzy stuff in your fridge. So, for a food to last forever, it needs to be the worst possible home for microbes. And honey is exactly that. First and foremost, it's mostly sugar, about 80% to be precise. And sugar is hygroscopic, meaning it absorbs and locks away moisture. It sucks water out of the environment and out of any bacteria that try to invade. This makes honey a supersaturated solution, which is a fancy way of saying there's way too much sugar dissolved in this tiny bit of water. And that creates an environment so hostile it's basically a molecular desert. Bacteria and fungi wander in and immediately dehydrate. It's like stepping into a vacuum chamber. There's no water to live on. They don't just starve, they shrivel. But honey's not just dry. It's also acidic. Most foods spoil faster in acidic environments, but not honey. Its pH typically sits between 3.2 and 4.5, depending on the flowers the bees visited. This is acidic enough to keep most pathogens far, far away. Think about vinegar or lemon juice, not the kind of place bacteria want to throw a party. So now we have two layers of protection. No water and high acidity. But wait, there's more. Because honey isn't just a lucky accident. It's engineered, not by humans, but by bees. When bees gather nectar, it starts out watery and unstable, around 70% water. If you tried to store that, it would spoil within days. But bees are nature's chemists. They chew the nectar, mix it with enzymes in their mouths, and then evaporate it by fanning their wings rapidly inside the hive. They're literally dehydrating the liquid to bring the water content down to less than 20%. And one of the enzymes they add? Glucose oxidase. That breaks down the glucose into gluconic acid, which adds to the acidity. And, here's the kicker, hydrogen peroxide. Yes, the same stuff in your medicine cabinet. So now the honey has high sugar, low water, acidic pH, and a natural antiseptic. It's like a fortress, a microbial minefield. Imagine being a bacterium trying to survive in that. You land, you gasp for water, the acid burns you, and then the hydrogen peroxide finishes the job. Honey doesn't just not spoil, it fights back. And if that wasn't enough, honey is also rich in antioxidants, amino acids, trace minerals, and antimicrobial peptides. It's got natural defense systems most processed foods could only dream of. In fact, in some cultures, honey has been used as medicine for centuries, applied to wounds, burns, and infections long before antibiotics existed. That's not superstition. Modern studies confirm that honey can actively help prevent bacterial growth and support healing. Not only does it not expire, it actively helps other things live. Now, sometimes your honey might crystallize. It gets thick, grainy, and turns cloudy. But that's not spoilage. That's just the glucose molecules naturally forming crystals over time, especially in cooler environments. If you want to turn it back to liquid, just warm the jar gently in hot water. It'll melt right down, good as new. Unless the honey has absorbed extra moisture from outside, like from a damp spoon, it's almost impossible to ruin. Still, nothing is truly indestructible. If you leave a jar of honey unsealed and water gets in, fermentation can happen. Yeasts may start to grow, but even then the result isn't dangerous. It just smells off, like mead or sour syrup. But when properly sealed and stored in a dry place, honey is as close to eternal as any food can get. So let's take a step back. Honey is a substance made by insects using enzymes and heat and teamwork. It's stored in wax hexagons, kept clean and dry, and naturally fortified by chemistry. And the result is something that defies time. A substance that doesn't just resist decay, it outright rejects it. It's a marvel of biology, chemistry, and evolution, all in one sticky spoonful. The next time you open that ancient jar of honey, don't hesitate. Don't question it. Just take a taste. You're not just eating something sweet. You're tasting something timeless.